look so good and I know what you're offering. Phone's lighting up, but I'm just gonna let it ring. Yeah, my phone's lighting up, but I'm just gonna let it ring. Is it the liquor in my system? My desire's not so real. Got me caught up in this rhythm.
Welcome to the late second generation Audi R8. Now this is more of a short overview of the Audi R8 now that the Audi R8 is no longer in production. We will brief on the technical specifications, lift it up, service it, and see how well the Audi R8 has aged. And of course, these vehicles were brought by One Legacy Motors and Wolfe Motors. Please check out their inventories in the description below. Starting with tire and wheel packages, 20-inch forged wheels with various designs like this can be optioned with summer tires. Tire size at the front is a 245/30 ZR20. And for the brake package at the front as standard consists of an 8-piston fixed brake caliper over a 365mm 2-piece drilled steel rotor. And since this is a staggered setup, the rear tire size is a 305/30 ZR20. And for the rear brake package, this consists of a 4-piston fixed brake caliper over a 356mm 2-piece drilled steel rotor.
Let's get deeper into the technical brief of the Audi R8. Starting off with a platform, it is based on the MSS platform, which is shared with the Lamborghini Huracan. It has been around for a long time, which has allowed many improvements throughout the years. The R8 utilizes the Audi space frame design, which is made of largely aluminum. The latest updates implemented carbon fiber reinforced polymers, which is formed via a resin transfer molding process. They use these materials in the rear bulkhead, the tunnel, the B-pillars, etc. Here we have a 2020 Audi R8 Spider on the lift. For initial brief impressions, we have various grille openings all over the front bumper here for various heat exchangers and coolers for various systems. Everything underneath here is completely flat to aid with aerodynamics. We took the covers at the back there to take a look at the engine as well as servicing the engine lubrication system. For your front suspension setup, you have an in-wheel double wishbone style suspension made up of all aluminum components here. You can see this is equipped with all-wheel drive. You can see the front axle here. The diameter is almost the same size as the tie rod here, which is kind of crazy. For your coil spring damper setup, you have a BWI damper. This is equipped with aftermarket springs, as you can see up there. This adjusted the ride height. And as for the front brakes, you have an 8-piston fixed brake caliper over a 2-piece rotor. For your rear suspension design, you have an in-wheel double wishbone style suspension again. All aluminum components. Here's your parking brake caliper with a electric motor on top of it. Moving on up there, there's your ride height sensor and your coil spring damper assembly. And here's your 4-piston fixed brake caliper. Let's finally talk about the 5.2-liter naturally aspirated 90-degree V10. Starting off with some basic specs, the bore and stroke is at 84.5 millimeters and 92.8 millimeters respectively, with a compression ratio of 12.5 to 1. These numbers may have changed over time with various iterations of the V10. This is the information I have for now. For lubrication, a dry sump lubrication system has been designed to handle the inertia of the engine oil in various driving scenarios. This scavenges engine oil throughout various parts of the engine bay using various oil pumps. For the fuel supply, the engine utilizes port injection and direct injection. The ECM decides which system to use in various driving scenarios. There are 2 high-pressure fuel pumps, which can generate pressures in excess of 2,900 psi. To further comply with emissions regulations, the engine is implemented with cylinder reactivation, which deactivates certain cylinders depending on the throttle mapping and driving scenario, of course. As for the internals, they used forged components for the pistons, the crankshaft, and everything has been strengthened for the serious amounts of cylinder pressures that this engine endures. As for cooling all of this, we have 3 heat exchangers fitted to the front for the main engine cooling, and you have 2 heat exchangers that flank the large side air ducts for the engine oil cooling and transmission fluid cooling. A 7-speed DSG automated dual clutch transmission is fitted to this engine assembly, known to the manufacturer as DL800-7A. We have most of the covers removed back here. As you can see, the engine bay is very tightly packed. You have various oil lines, coolant lines, harnesses snaking around everywhere here. Pretty impressively designed. Your generator assembly is pretty easy to access right here. Your AC compressor is tightly packed up there. There's a shaft that drives it towards the back, towards the bell housing where the engine and transmission assembly meet. Very interesting. This car does have 5 oil drain plugs as part of the regular engine oil service. Here is your dual clutch transmission with a plastic lower pan here, as you can see. This has to be regularly serviced. You can see this full filter cap.
And cut back to voiceover. Unfortunately, I ran out of time to film a deeper discussion on the powertrain and drivetrain, so I will have to narrate while we watch this absolute moron execute the oil service. Again, with the basic specs, bore and stroke is at 84.5mm and 92.8mm respectively, with a compression ratio of 12.5 to 1. For the foundation, the cylinder block is made up of 2 pieces, with the upper section cast from a hyper-eutectic aluminum alloy, and a lower bed plate cast from a separate aluminum alloy that is bolted underneath. The block houses a forged steel crankshaft and forged steel connecting rods. As for the dry sump lubrication system, the oil pump module is at the heart of the system, consisting of 2 suction stages and a pressure stage. The 2 suction stages scavenge oil from the crankcase, timing chain case, and cylinder heads, while the pressure stage supplies pressurized oil to the engine. The coolant pump is also integrated to the oil pump module. Above all of this are cylinder heads made of aluminum, housing dual overhead camshaft designs with titanium roller rocker arms and valve springs, which integrates variable camshaft timing on both intake and exhaust camshafts. As said earlier, the powertrain is integrated with a cylinder deactivation system, as well as a direct fuel injection and port fuel injection system. Torque is transmitted through dual wet multiplate clutches to the DL800-7A, which is a full synchro mesh 3-shaft electro-hydraulic transmission with 7 forward gears and a reverse gear. The transmission also integrates the rear final drive with a limited slip differential. If configured with all-wheel drive, the transmission also integrates an output shaft for the final drive to the front axle. Torque is modulated via a wet multiplate clutch module, where the front final drive has its own dedicated cooling circuit. Now, since this is only a technical brief of the Audi R8, my brief interior impressions saw that the interior design is quite simple, with the typical tactile switchgear that Audi is known for. However, there is no center infotainment. In conclusion, the Audi R8 served one purpose: become a mid-engine sports car that can be driven every day. Built from a highly rigid platform enhanced with high-end materials, the chassis design and suspension calibration is bearable over most pavements, albeit those 20-inch wheels are quite large. And of course, the naturally aspirated, free-revving V10 is the core of the driving experience. Of course, maintenance is of huge importance for the powertrain and drivetrain, especially with their technical complexities. However, there is still good support for this platform, and to conclude my technical brief, I believe the Audi R8 will continue to be missed.